People buy things all the time and say yes to things all the time that they don't necessarily believe everything about.
If you're selling something you don't like, something you don't believe in, something that you don't use yourself, something that you wouldn't recommend to your mom, then don't sell it.
Really winning in business is more about staying power, more about relentlessness, more about tenacity, more about vision, more about dreams than it's ever about skill.
Rise and shine, it's espresso time. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I am not a morning person. I'm not. But when you start your day with a powerful morning routine that inspires you, like watching one of these videos, it will change your life. So let's start your day off right together. Grab your coffee, know that I believe in you, and get ready for a shot of espresso from Ed Mylett.
I wake up every morning.
Espresso keep me going.
I wake up every morning.
So I think people mistake some things, and we'll talk about some specifics. The first thing is this: I finally figured out that I'm not trying to completely convince you of everything I'm saying. I'm trying to convince you that I believe what I'm saying. So I think there's a subtle difference when you're influencing people. People think to close you, I have to convince you to believe everything I'm saying. I don't believe that's true. I think I have to convince you that I believe what I'm saying. Right. That's a totally different level of influence. It looks less like a beggar. It looks far more certain, which is level 2. Level 2 is the more certain person will always influence the least certain person, and you know your product. So you should be more certain about it than they are, or your program. So a couple things about that. All kinds of things give you certainty, okay? Number 1, preparation. Knowing your script, knowing your product back and forth, believing in your product back and forth, knowing that you know the words, knowing you know what you're going to say it's a dance. This is very interesting to me when people struggle at sales. There's only like a certain amount of objections you're going to get in whatever your industry is. You already know what they're going to say. It's one of 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 different things. You ought to be ready to respond to them. So most people in sales are professional presenters. They're not professional closers. They're great at their presentation. They can't close. And so I got really good at closing because someone's going to close somebody. Either you're going to close me, you shouldn't, or I'm going to close you that you should. Yeah. And so the more certain person's going to win. If you just want to accept that truth, that one, you got to believe that I believe what I'm saying, not that you believe. People buy things all the time and say yes to things all the time that they don't necessarily believe everything about. They believe the person presenting it to them believes it. That's a different level.
I used to think I was really bad at sales. Honestly, I thought sales was sleazy. I thought you're just ripping people off. I thought you're just trying to convince people to do something that maybe it's in their best interest, maybe it's not, but it's definitely in your best interest. I guess I had the stereotypical view of what a salesperson was. I had the negative experiences from all the people telemarketing me and calling me and pretending like they care, but they don't. And I really struggle with lack of authenticity. You know, I really struggle with that. And every model of a salesperson that I would see, I felt like, this person doesn't get it. I never want to be this person. I never want to be the person selling something that I don't believe in. And so I think that honestly helped me back for a number of years until I realized you can be authentic and sell. You know, you can actually love what you're selling, know that it can be valuable to the customer and move them in a direction that serves them and helps you too. And I don't know if there's enough, honestly, great sales training or sales examples to model and learn from. Because if you think about your own experience with salespeople, most of them are, again, just trying to close you, just trying to sell you, and it doesn't feel authentic, and it feels like a negative experience. It feels slimy. I think back to when I was 12 and 13 years old and I was negotiating baseball cards. I remember one kid, I had a garage sale, and a kid came up and wanted my Michael Jordan baseball rookie card, upper deck, for the season he played with the Chicago White Sox. And I had it listed for $20, and he came in, he offered me 10, and he said that that's all he had on him. And I said, go home and get the other 10. And he did. He went home and he got the other 10. And why? You know, why push him? Well, I believed in the card was worth $20. You know, I believed it was worth it. Not that I bought it for whatever and I was just trying to make a margin, like it was actually worth it. I think to last week when I was helping Drew's an entrepreneur I invested in. He is a consultant helping other people grow YouTube channels. And I introduced him to a couple of prospects, and I got on a call with them and helped them close a couple deals. And I have a ton of energy when I'm talking to somebody about their YouTube channel that I actually believe in. Like if I see somebody who's an expert, like you are an expert, you could be great at this. You could be America's face for whatever. You've got a deep well of knowledge. We need to get that out into the world. YouTube has to be your #1 home. When I'm on a call, there's a lot of energy and excitement for that because I deeply believe that it's the best thing for them. I actually see the vision for where they could go. And it's my belief in them that's greater than their belief in themselves for this thing that carries the day. Meanwhile, there's been tons of things that I haven't sold. You know, the number of people who pitch me every day with, hey, Evan, can you do a shout out? Hey, Evan, how much does it cost to promote my product? Hey, Evan, can you be an affiliate for my company? I was like, oh, well, I have to use your thing. I've never used your product or service, so I'm not gonna recommend it to people if I haven't used it. When I did a 3-year deal with Sage, for those OG on the channel, you might remember I did 3 years of me and Stephen Kelly, who's the CEO of Sage. Sage is one of the biggest companies in Europe. And we did every month live chat on my YouTube channel. And before doing that deal with him, I loved him. He was great. One of my favorite CEOs of all time that I've met. Most CEOs are boring, afraid to answer questions, afraid to do anything live. He was great. But I wasn't a Sage user. I wasn't a Sage user. I was a Microsoft Money user at the time. Shout out to Microsoft Money. And I said, in order for me to do this deal, I need to actually become a user. I need to switch my team over to Sage. We have to be able to use it on a daily basis. I want to be able to tell people and look them in the eye that I'm actually using it myself. I want to be able to troubleshoot some things, like if somebody says, hey, how do I look at my balance sheet or income statement? I could point to it and show it because I'm using it. And that was part of the deal of why we made it 3 years, is because for me to convert over and move all my team over was effort, right? And it's why I leave tons of money on the table because I'm just unwilling to promote things that I don't care about or use personally. And so step #1 is always, I'm gonna use it, I'm gonna see if I like it, I'm gonna see if I can actually apply it to my business, and if I'm comfortable talking about it or recommending it, then I will. And if I love it, then I become such a great advocate for it. I think this is maybe the missing piece for a lot of you who may struggle with sales. Like if you're selling something you don't like, something you don't believe in, something that you don't use yourself, something that you wouldn't recommend to your mom, then don't sell it. People who are just chasing an opportunity, thinking it's a hot time to sell whatever product, don't do it. You're gonna feel gross, you're gonna get really poor results, you're gonna beat yourself up about it, where the problem is you just don't love the thing that you're selling and don't think that there's a lot of value in it. Where if you actually do, if you love it, and you know that this thing can solve somebody's problem, can have an impact on their life, can change it for the better, that's when you can go all in on it. And I think that's where most people actually generate a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. I think one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs is you love what you're doing, but you doubt if it's actually gonna work. It's your own insecurity about yourself, that you don't know if you're gonna get a result for the person. You don't know if the product or service is actually gonna be the best thing for them. You love delivering, you love creating the product, you love helping them with the service, but you don't know if it's actually gonna pay off, right? You don't know if you have what it takes to actually help them, even if you've helped other people. And that's where you need to get more certainty. Certainty in your ability to deliver. Certainty in knowing that even if you don't have everything figured out, you are going to show up for this client. That even if everything goes wrong, you'll find a way to show up. When you can adopt that mentality, everything shifts and changes. When I did my speaking tour and then we had to cancel on some people because I broke my neck, I said, okay, we'll make it up to them. You know, I'll over deliver. I'll do a free call with everybody who came, who paid for that event that we're gonna cancel on them. We're gonna refund them the money, obviously, but on top of that, we're gonna offer a free call with me to help them with whatever is, like, why did they want to come to the event in the first place? What's on their mind? How can I help and serve them? There's always a way to do more. There's always a way to over-deliver. Even if you mess up, there's a way that you can save the relationship and help. And so just keep that in your mind to help you get the certainty, because your intention is good. You want to serve. You know you're capable of doing it. But there's that little voice of doubt that you're not quite sure if it's going to work out for this client or not. If you can tap into that knowing that even if everything goes wrong, you can still help them, and you will work your face off until they are happy, that can give you the confidence to go in with the enthusiasm and certainty that's required to actually close the deal. Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you watch a video and you just get motivated, the science says you have a 35% chance of actually following through. That, Believe Nation, is not enough. But when you create a specific plan of action and write it down of what you're gonna do, that number jumps from 35% to 91% chance of you following through. And when you commit publicly to others, like leaving a comment with your plan down below, that number jumps to 95% chance of you following through. So I wanna know your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and next week I will profile one of you.
I love the book by my brother Evan Carmichael, Built to Serve, you guys. This is the kind of thing you get in this book. Most people wake up and drive to a job they hate. Think about your 5 closest friends. Are they happy? Do they live their lives with purpose? Do you? We put on a fake front for what we want people to see and think about us, but the reality is most people aren't happy. We're lost. We settle. You can't be happy if you don't know your purpose. And then he goes on to explain how to do that. You guys should get this book, Built to Serve, by my dear friend Evan Carmichael. You got to be able to have a big enough dream that the visions and the dreams of the people you're going to enroll into your organization, they're going to become a part of your team or your company, their dreams and their visions can fit inside this big one you've got. That's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes you compelling. That's what attracts people to you. And so anything, Art used to say, any church, Boy Scout troop, football team, you show me something that's winning, it's run by a leader. And leaders have vision. Where there is no vision, people perish. Where there's no vision, your business perishes. Where there's no dream, whatever endeavor it is you're involved in will eventually perish. But if the dream's alive, if the dream's big enough, you can accomplish anything, because you'll overcome the adversity, the tough times, the difficult times that the people who ultimately lose won't overcome. Really, winning in business is more about staying power, more about relentlessness, more about tenacity, more about vision, more about dreams than it's ever about skill. You show me somebody with enough vision, a big enough dream, I'll show you somebody who will eventually acquire the skills, the talents, or the other people necessary to make that huge dream happen. But I've seen all kinds of talented people, all kinds of skilled people that succumb to adversity.
Some people deceive themselves into thinking they're further ahead than they are, right?
Yeah.
They're constantly, they always want to tell you how well they're doing, and they're sort of deceiving themselves, and that deception leads to lack of activity, drive, desire, blah, blah, blah. You and I do the reverse. I deceive myself I'm further behind than I am. I know you do this too, because we've talked about it.
Totally.
I love deceiving myself. I love deceiving our company. I love deceiving the team, because I want us to feel like we got it. Malcolm X has this great quote. He says, "That which you do not hate, you will eventually tolerate." I'm a big believer, and I got to almost despise where I am right now, and I do. So I'm the kind of the king of deception with myself.
Most of you lose control of your life in the first 5 minutes after you wake up. I talk about it in my book, and you begin to respond all day long. The first thing is this: the hardest thing you will do, and the thing that will change your life almost with the greatest impact, is to not check your phone for the first 30 minutes you wake up in the morning. I'm telling you that
might be the biggest game changer.
It is the biggest game changer for me. It was so difficult, so what I did is I moved it away from where I sleep. But I'm just going to say to you all, you think that's not a big deal, I got to check it. I'm telling you, if you could go 30 minutes, if you could start by going 10 minutes to begin your day, something where you do not check that sucker and react. And then what you say about the gratitude thing, that's profound for me, and it's a breakthrough for me when you said it. I'm always kind of like, what are the big things I'm grateful for? God, I'm grateful for my kids. You reduce it down to just something. What's the smallest thing you could be grateful for, right? I love that, because there's always a small thing you could be grateful for. I'm grateful I clipped my toenails yesterday, whatever it is, right? There's something. So I just want to validate how powerful I think both those simple tools, the simplest things, make the biggest impacts in our lives. I want you to write this down. I need you to embrace the suffering.
You know, there's something powerful that once you just sort of embrace the fact that in order to achieve something big, you've got to get rid of these distractions. And then the other layer of it is you're probably going to have some suffering to get there or some sacrifice to get there. And so once you've embraced and decided that this suffering, this sacrifice you're making is an indicator of progress. It's an indicator of obsession. Suffering and sacrifice and hard work is an indication of progress towards our dreams. The lack of sacrifice, the lack of suffering in our lives, its removal, its non-existence also equates to a non-existence of a great life, a non-existence of a dream happening, a big one anyway. And so embrace the fact that you're going to have to sacrifice and suffer to some extent. Once you've embraced that it's going to happen, it's almost not that bad. It's kind of like those of you that are fit. We already know, and you already know even if you're not, you've sort of accepted that before you go to the gym and get there, you're going to have to suffer. And we go anyway. It becomes a habit. No one goes into a gym thinking, I'm not going to have to sacrifice or suffer. There'll be no discomfort or no pain. But millions of people go anyway, don't they, to the gym? On some level, they're suffering in the gym, whether it's breathing heavy or sweating or aches or pains or stress. You know, everything in the gym is a sacrifice, and to some extent, you're suffering, going through some pain. You know it before you go, don't you? Yet most of us go all the time. Yet in life, outside of that one area, most of us we're worried about suffering. We're afraid of it. When we're suffering and sacrificing, we wonder whether it's worth it. We wonder whether we're supposed to. We wonder whether sacrifice or setbacks or suffering is a sign it's not our real dream, don't we? See, at the gym, you'd never think, oh, I'm going through some pain and discomfort. This must be a sign I shouldn't be at the gym. You'd never think that. It goes with the territory. Everyone knows to build a bicep or a tricep or a chest or legs. You have to break it down, suffer and sacrifice for it to grow. So while it's happening, there's no part of you that says this isn't right. In fact, the indication of the pain and sacrifice and sweat, don't you feel better at the gym? You're like, wow, I really sacrificed today. I really suffered. So in that area, we all know to the extent we suffer and sacrifice is to the extent we grow. And your body is a metaphor for the rest of your life. But the rest of our life, every time we sweat, every time we sacrifice, every time we suffer, we don't do what we do at the gym. We start saying, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. Maybe I'm not cut out. Maybe it's not my destiny. Maybe I just can't do it.
There are people listening to this who are not wired. It's okay if you were watching this and say, my goals aren't financial. I'll accept that for a second. What I don't accept is when people tell me that, but it's not replaced with another obsession that would fulfill them. If it's, I want to have 1 million children get educated, or I want to feed 1 million people, or I want to start a charity that does XYZ for homeless women.
All those things will take money.
Well, those things do take money. Well, or the raising of money, right, from someone else. And so I find it that people either aren't clear on what their obsessions are, or when they get them, they're just some arbitrary thing they've set low that they think everybody else would think is a big deal. And so we were just off camera right before we went live, and we were both saying to each other, which is just, probably only say to each other, is we both really feel like we're behind. We really feel uncomfortable with where we are, because what we want to achieve, when I've done my show, the number one thing that surprised me, Omar, is in my podcast, in my show, is when I interview people, some say it on camera, but almost all of them say it off camera. And that is that, honestly, this is something people would be shocked by. The mega achievers that I have on my show struggle with what I would even call borderline depression. This is a secret that most people won't tell you, right?
I've seen it on my show as well, yeah.
And okay, so you understand
they're not fulfilled, they're not happy. They made the money, but they don't have a momentum.
I think there's an element of that.
Right.
And I think there's another element that people that are mega achievers have such gigantic standards and outcomes for themselves that they're never quite meeting them. And I kind of like that. I kind of think that having some discomfort with where you are, everyone thinks, I think everyone's fantasy is, I want to get somewhere where I don't want something anymore. Listen to me on this. I think a lot of people think, if I could just get somewhere where I no longer feel uncomfortable, where I no longer want something I don't have, where I'm no longer seeking something. What they're really saying is, I'd like to get somewhere where I no longer will grow again, right? I don't want that. I always want to be in a state of discomfort, a state of growth, a state of contribution. And so you better be careful that whatever you set, that as you're approximating it, as you're getting closer, that the next one's thrown out there, the next one's thrown out there. We spent the better part of the last 2 hours, both of us, we're playing cards. What do you want, man? What makes you happy?
He was beating me at cards.
I took literally all his money tonight, as a matter of fact, right? Well, all the money that was on the table. But the point I think I would make to you is that your obsessions are what you're going to get. So be very careful what you choose, make them big, and make sure that there's something that, at least at this stage of where you are in your current level of awareness, you believe truly would make you happy, truly would make you fulfilled. And be very careful when you set them. And so if that's $1 million, great. Like, we're both at a point now where, and we don't mean it in a condescending way whatsoever. I know that $1 million is not a lot of money in this world.
Right.
Maybe it was a lot of money in 1940, but it's not anymore. People that make six figures, and bless their heart, there are still people walking around that have deluded themselves into comfort and thinking, I'm successful because I make six figures. Six figures was a lot of money in 1965, man.
Right.
This is 2018, 2019 when some people will watch this. That's not a lot of money now. And really neither is seven figures in income anymore, right? And so it's just a matter of you getting aware of what your capacity is. And the more you are aware of how spectacular you're wired, the less you'd shortchange yourself with really small goals.
What's something that, I guess, Ed sitting here right now could go back and tell the young Ed? What would you say, hey, you should listen to this one?
Wow. There's a million things because I lack so much confidence. I would have first told myself, hey, man, you deserve to be successful. This isn't relegated to people different than you.
Yeah.
I used to think, who are these people that live in these beach houses and have these jets or play on TV in a sport? They're like a different species or something. And as I've got to know them all from doing my show and just from living my life, they're just like you in many ways. They're just human. They have the same emotions, the same weaknesses and whatnot. But here's the deal, man. Your life, you're probably never going to exceed your identity. And that your identity is the thoughts and concepts that you believe to hold really to be true about yourself. And you have multiple identities. You have a happiness one, a wealth one, a fitness one, a relationship one. And you will never, temporarily, you could get a better result than what you believe you're worth, but you'll find a way to cool it back down. Your identity is like that thermostat on the wall. It sets the temperature for your life. So if you're a 75 degree, or let's just say of wealth, and you live at 75 degrees, you might get it going for a while in business and you're living at 80, 85 degrees, but all of a sudden the thermostat of your life will kick in unconsciously and you will find a way to cool it right back down. Reverse is true too. You start going broke, you can't pay your bills. You'll find a way eventually, don't you? You didn't starve, you didn't get homeless, you heated your life back up to what you think you're worth.
Yeah.
And it governs your life. It doesn't matter the external conditions. If you have a thermostat in this room, 100 degrees outside, it'll still regulate this room to 75.
Yeah.
And so your identity is the thermostat of your life. And if you don't change the thoughts, concepts, and worth you hold to be true about yourself, all of the other mechanical things you do, you will find a way. Most Hall of Fame athletes simply have a higher identity about their craft and their career. Most high performers in fitness, high performers in a relationship, people in faith, their faith. You see someone just lives with great faith. They've got 150 degrees of faith. And so they get that no matter what the conditions are. There's a woman on my show today, Tony, who was the mother of a 5, 4, and 2-year-old, Kayla Stockline. Her husband was a pastor of a church. He hung himself last year in their church, committed suicide, and left 3 children behind and a loving wife and a church full of people. And on my show, she says that the last year, her faith has only increased and she's closer to God. How in the world is that possible? It's because no matter what the conditions of her life is, she's got this gigantic faith identity. So my thing I'd go back and tell me is you better work on this identity thing all the time, bro. You better keep working on it or you will find a way to cool your life back down in every area to what you think you're worth and what you think you deserve.
One of the things that you do, and I want to remind everybody of something. Lewis's show's called The School of Greatness, and it's easy to forget, and maybe no one's told you in a while, but you were born to do something great with your life. And that's easy to forget when you're going, I'm in scarcity mode. I need to survive. I mean, that sounds great, Ed, but like, you don't understand. I'm unemployed. I've got rent that I'm going to have to start paying again. I understand that. And I'm saying one of the pathways out is you remind yourself, I was born to do something great in big ways and small ways. And some of the smallest great things you will ever do in your life are the most important, not the big ones, not the, I had Kobe Bryant on my show, or I just spoke to 5,000 people, or I made 100 grand on a sale. I'm talking about the small things that maybe only you and that other person know about. You and I both just had, sometimes our guests overlap, and I love how we approach the interviews different too. We both just had Nick Vujicic on our shows in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. And he's spoken in, I don't know, 75 countries, millions of people. He was born with no arms and no legs. He's a friend of both of ours. And it started because a janitor at his school nudged him, a janitor at his school, and said, hey, I think you'd be a great speaker, a great motivator to people. Now, that man that helped him, that was a small act of greatness. He maxed out that day with that person, and he made a difference in the history of mankind.
This man's spoken to millions of people, saved people from suicide, inspired them. For me, and my original business was a financial business. Well, the man who got me involved in that business was never financially very successful, but I was in college. He said, I think you'd be great. And I wasn't interested in Lewis. He'd write me a letter every month. I still believe in you. I think you'd be amazing. Wow. I think you'd be, and I get these handwritten letters every month, little acts of greatness. Well, because of that, I've been able to reach millions and millions of people. You would say, well, Ed Mylett's done some pretty great things. Really? Well, what about Steve Adams, who wrote me all those letters, who got me into entrepreneurship? What if you were that person to curate, in Lewis's words, to collaborate? Who could you connect? How resourceful could you be right now in connecting other people? Man, you start doing that, this helpless feeling goes away, this self-confidence begins to emerge, and you ironically start to create some momentum.
The most powerful way and the easiest way to change your thermostat setting is by adding people to your circle, very close proximity, that live at a higher temperature in that area than you do. For example, in your faith, let's just say, you're a 75-degreer in your faith. You've already seen this. You can't possibly begin to regularly associate with good, godly people who pray regularly, who try to live righteously, and they're at 110, 120 degrees of faith in their life, and not have that proximity heat you up. Now, you won't get to where they are. You'll get to somewhere between where you are at 75 degrees and they are at 110. Over time, you become 100-degreer, and you alter the thermostat setting through association. Same in business. If you and I were to hang around each other every single day, and let's say you were a 75-degreer in business, hypothetically, and I don't know that about you, but let's just say you were, and I was 150-degreer, and we hung around each other all the time. Don't you think through that association, especially if you had 2 or 3 or 4 people like me in your life, that just over time, you don't even feel it. You're at 80, you're at 85, you're at 90, you're at 95. And that's where you are. We understand the power of this with our children, because we know at school the teachers have influence over them, they're mentors, but the people that really have influence over our children are their friends, because they're around them all the time. And so we know it sets their temperature. This is true in fitness. If you're a 75-degree of fitness, and every meal, every day at the gym, all your associations, hypothetically speaking, were with someone who was shredded and fit the way you wanted to look at 150 degrees, you know over time you get heated up. And so you can't be with someone every day, you can't be with them all the time, but the key is to get more proximity in the areas that matter with people whose thermostat setting is higher than yours. I am a product. You are listening to me right now because I've been so obsessed with this concept of adding new associations to my life that live in the areas that I want to improve in at higher temperatures than me. It's my obsession to this day. I'll give you a secret. One of the reasons I even do my show is I know that I'm influencing many of these guests in the areas that matter most to them through our proximity, and in some cases they do it for me. And so I'm obsessed with the power of association, but I don't just associate. See, all personal development says, yeah, you're the 5 people you hang around. Kinda. You really are the 5 to 10 people you hang around if you're conscious all the time of studying them, of observing them, of asking questions, of the fact that you should be altering your thermostat setting. That's when it really moves. It's not just hanging around. It's consciously and intentionally spending time with people where you allow it to impact you, where you study them, where you really observe them, where you're open to their influence. There has to be a level of trust before you can do that, where you surrender yourself to them. But it's not just being around them. It's intentionally being around people that alters that thermostat setting. So power of association is the main way to do it.
We often talk and hear speeches in WFG, myself included, TFA, about identity and belief and leadership building and how we think and being positive and hard work and all these intangible things. But at the end of the day, it's the tangible things, it's the real things that make businesses grow or die. In our business, it's the ability to get somebody to produce a result, or what I call closing. Closing's a nice way of saying, or a harsh way of saying, I guess, getting people to do things that are in their best interest, persuading people to say yes. And in our business, if you can't persuade people to say yes, you're going to lose. In our business, it's yes to the opportunity and yes to our financial products. And at the end of the day, what our business comes down to is, can you close? Can you get a check? Can you get people to say yes to you, to buy a product from you or to buy our business from you? And then from there, it's your proficiency level, your ability to transfer that skill of closing people to other people. And if you can't do it, you're going to lose. It's the number 1 skill, it's the number 2 skill, it's the number 5 skill, it's the number 10 skill in our business. I don't care what list you have, it's by far the most important thing, and it's the most important thing multiplied by 10 times other things you could come up with. The ability to get people to say yes, the ability to give a presentation, at the end of it they say yes, the ability to overcome objections when someone says the basic things in our business. I want to think about it. It's too much money. I don't want to be a salesperson. I read something on the internet. I want to talk to my wife. Is this network marketing? Whatever the questions are, the objections you get, your ability to overcome them and move to yes. If you can't do that, you're going to lose here. If you can't train people to do that, you're going to lose here. If your meetings don't train people to do that, people will stop coming to those meetings. We spend way too much time. My hallucination is you and your office spend way too much time on motivating, inspiring speeches instead of teaching. Instead of actually getting people to do our craft, to become professionals, to get yourself to do it. You think about it, if you drew a line in the sand, you said, these are all the people in our organization's history that have gotten a check or have gotten to SMD. And then on the other side are all the people who didn't get to SMD or have never gotten a check. What do all the people who've gotten a check, or let's just say got to SMD, which is just a basic level in our company of proficiency, have gotten to that level, what do they all have in common? Well, not a lot. Some of them are smart, some of them aren't so smart. Some of them are Caucasian, some of them are Asian, black, Hispanic, you name it. Some of them are tall, some of them are short. Some of them are men, some of them are women. Some of them are immigrants, some were born in our country. They don't have a whole lot in common. Some are married, some are single, some are old, some are young. What do they have in common? They can all close. They can all get a yes, or at least at one time in their career, they developed the ability to give a presentation. At the end of it, somebody said yes. They knew the words. They knew how to say. They knew what to say when someone says, well, give me some time. Let me think about it. Or is this too much money? Or, I read this. Or is this network marketing? Or, the basic stuff, right? They're not mysteries. There's only about 8 or 10 things people say to us to object. There aren't 800. There's 8 or 10 basic ones. And when you can overcome those things and give a presentation, you win. We know they can do this because we wouldn't have sent them a check without their ability to do it. I'm positive they could do it at one point because we sent them a check. All these other people over here who didn't make it, didn't get a check, or didn't get to SMD, what all them in common? Some are smart, some aren't so smart. Some are black, some are white, some are Asian, some are Hispanic. You get the point. Some are tall, some are short. They got all that in common too. What do they all for sure have in common? They can't close. They can't get a check. That's why we never sent them one. That's why they quit. That's why people quit on you. Be very clear. People quit on you, or you will quit based on your ability or inability to close. When you can close, you're going to do our business. And when you can close and then you can teach people how to persuade people, which is closing, you're really going to build something significant. Listen, guys, it's appreciation and intentional appreciation. So one of the things, I'm a crazy list maker. I make lists. Most people I know are kind of people who make lists. That person's blowing your phone up right now.
I know. I just put it on airplane mode.
Yeah, mine's doing that too. And so I make lists of stuff I got to do every day. Why do I do that? Well, it reminds me of what I do. But what I do is self-confidence is the process of keeping the promises you make to yourself. You've probably all heard me say that, Lewis say that before. But how do you do that? Well, for me, it's the visual delivery of it for me. So if it says like Instagram Live with Lewis at 10 a.m., make sure I text Bedros Koulian back today. Whatever it is, right? I've got to prepare a training I'm going to be doing in a week. I'm doing a Las Vegas TV show today. I got to prep for that. And so when I do something and I check the box, I don't just do it. I intentionally go, nailed it, got it. And I start banking these deposits in myself, so to speak, of another promise kept, another promise kept, another promise kept. That's something you could be doing right now. I had a little one last night, bro. I'm going to share something with you. Yeah. Patrick Schwarzenegger and I are pretty good friends. I know you know Patrick too. And I'm watching Patrick's Instagram.
Wait, didn't I connect you guys?
I think you did connect us, dang it. You're right. That's actually right.
I connected you to Maria Shriver because he said.
That's right. That's perfect example of collecting. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you just said that. Yes, you did, as a matter of fact. And Patrick's this good-looking model, actor, personal improvement guy, but he's so good-looking. He's like a Lewis Howes lookalike. And but on his Instagram, he's eating ice cream and eating cake every single day. Well, he can get away with it, whatever his metabolism is, right? And I've been training hard, but you may think this is silly, everyone, but I have had a little bit the last 2 weeks of an ice cream problem.
Dude, I had a whole thing, a pint of ice cream last night. I'm with you, man.
Dude, I have been plowing ice cream in my pie hole, like so bad. And I'm like, so no matter what I'm doing to work out, I'm like, I never sit around and eat ice cream. I mean, maybe once a month or something. Every damn night I'm on ice cream. And so last night, this may seem like a simple promise. Here's how small life can get when you're in this. I woke up yesterday. It was Easter. I had Easter with my family. And I had to drive back out here to the beach to work today. And I'm like, no ice cream tonight. No ice cream tonight. And it was on my list of things to do that day was don't eat ice cream. And I got here last night and I did my work all day and I do what you do. I turn on Netflix and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna catch up on Ozarks for about an hour.
Oh my
here.
gosh. No, I finished that the first 2 days. Yeah.
Right, which is gonna turn into 8 hours, of course, right? All of a sudden it's 1 a.m. But about midnight, I'm like, that ice cream sounds damn good right now.
Man.
And then
a couple bites.
Just a couple bites. And then I'm like, well, it's 12:05, so technically it's the next day. You know, you start playing these games. It's not actually Sunday anymore.
You kept your promise. Yeah.
I kept the promise. But the point is, I actually started to walk to the freezer and the refrigerator. You may think this is stupid, everybody. And I went, no. And I turned back around, I got a bottle of water, and I sat and watched another show, and then I went to bed. But you may go, that's nothing. To me, that was another deposit in my self-confidence inventory. I'm keeping promises I make to myself, right? So these things may seem small, but at 49 years old this month, the reason I went from having no self-esteem, no self-confidence whatsoever to where I am now, which is pretty confident, is that I started this process that I know works, which is promise kept, promise kept, promise kept. And I've made thousands of these deposits to where when one thing hits me that rocks my self-confidence, it doesn't take away from the thousands of promises I've kept to myself. So just think about that. What are the small things you could be doing?
I'm a huge believer in the power of intention and awareness. So when these negative thoughts creep in, whatever they are, fear, I'm aware of my own thinking. And once you're aware of a thought, it loses its power to have a feeling over you. This is what most people don't understand. So we're all going to have those thoughts like, oh, I'm losing my dad. It's a horrible thing. When you're aware of that negative thought, the feeling loses its power over you. One of the things that I think people need to start to understand is if you don't align your thoughts and your feelings, neither one has any power. There has to be a congruency between what you're thinking and what you're feeling. That's why, like, for example, when people set up all these goals, I'm going to make $1 million, or I'm going to go to the NFL, or I'm going to be happy, or I'm going to lose 20 pounds. In the moment you're having that thought, if you're feeling that you can't have it, if you're feeling that's not going to happen, your body, which is your unconscious mind actually at work, the feeling overrides the thought and that goal has no power. That's why, like, when you played on my show, I was going to say this to you afterwards and I didn't. You're talking about how you'd visualize these things happening. One of the things about visualization that happens is if you put yourself in the movie of your life, you begin to feel what it feels like to catch that pass in the end zone. So the thought is simultaneous with the feeling. So if you can begin to visualize what your goals are and allow yourself to feel it in the present time, and there's the gift I'll give you. If you could already experience gratitude for an event or a goal that has not yet happened, but you can experience the gratitude. So when you'd have these visualizations, you probably didn't know you were doing it when you played, but you're visualizing the catch. You're visualizing the celebration. You're already in a gratitude state about having received the goal you have. Now you've aligned in congruence your feelings with your thoughts. Now you're a powerful MFer. But what most people do in their life is they either have the conscious thoughts overridden by their like lack. I have never done this before. I'm not going to do it. I've always been 20 pounds overweight. I don't have $1 million in the bank. And they write down all these goals that aren't linked with the feeling. People say, well, how do I get the feeling? You get the feeling by having gratitude for the event before it's happened. So gratitude would be my answer. I'm trying to find the thing I'm grateful for during this event in the present time. The model for me is that I am about maxing out in my life, but the model for me is that I've learned from the mistakes that I've made, and that it sounds as hokey as you can be, I'm trying to get better every single day. Every decision I make, I just want to get better because you know what? I don't compete with other people. I don't compare myself to other people. This is my life, right? And so the model for me is this, and I just want to say this to everybody. There's probably a point in your life where you were given a script of who you were supposed to be, whether it's your parents or your friends or your spouse. And we live too often in our lives some other person's script, right? Someone else's script. Remember this, you're the lead character in the story of your life. And the person who controls that script is you and your God. And at any point, you can decide to step into a new chapter. You can step in to be a whole new leading character. And too often, at the end of a movie, you know at the end of a movie, there's the credits? It's like leading character, leading woman. But if you watch long enough, eventually you get down there, it's like cab driver number 2, trucker number 3. They don't even have names at the end of the movie, right? Most people live their life worrying about what cab driver number 2, bouncer number 3, instead of your life is about those leading characters, those 5 or 6 or 8 people around you that you love. So my model is I live my own script. My model is I control that script. Me and God. I can write a new chapter. I could right now. You get off this podcast. You could decide to step out into a whole new character. Maybe not dramatic. Maybe you're just a little bit more confident woman, a little stronger, a little bit more dedicated to your focus, a little bit more focused on keeping the promises you make yourself. You just start stepping into that new place. And for me, I write new chapters every year. I'm not interested in reading the past chapters. My past chapters are either are stories I've made up in my mind about how great I was, or big failure stories we repeat to ourselves. I'm about the new chapter right now, not even the future. Right now, writing that new chapter. That's my model, is I control the script, and I know I control the script with God's blessing.
So I was just visiting about this topic with my kids, and I thought you and I ought to visit about it too, because it applies so deeply to business. And that's the concept of belief and how that impacts our performance in everything in our lives. And I want you to think about belief for a second. See, if you're a good person, and that's really where this applies, is to good people, but good people will only let themselves, in almost any endeavor, any activity, good people only take from it that which they believe they deserve. Now, bad person, they'll always take more than they deserve, because that's what people without character do. But good people, and I hope you consider yourself a good person, they'll only take from something that they think they deserve. Let me give you an example. Let's say there was a pizza here. We were going to serve, there's 12 people here, there's 12 slices of pizza. Well, you know how you'd react, and any good person. They'd either wait for everybody else to get their piece, or they only take one slice because they know that the other people there only would have one left for them. Bad person, they just take any time they want to, wouldn't they? So a good person will only take from any scenario that which they think they deserve. And that's a good thing. It's also a bad thing. Because ultimately what it comes down to in business is really this. When it comes to your business life, or becoming affluent, saving money, getting financially independent, you'll only take from your life and from your business that which you think you deserve. And so really, almost more important than strategy is an internal identity. It's an internal belief that says, I deserve this. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to have this dream come true. I deserve to be financially independent. I deserve to be in the top 10 in my business. I deserve to be number 1. Or my team deserves to. My family deserves to. And once you believe you deserve something, then you've at least opened the door to walk into the room of success. But prior to believing you deserve it, you can do all the work, all the calls, all the mechanics that the other people do. But if you don't believe you deserve it, you're never going to even walk into the room and sit at the table to have a chance to get your piece. The chair at the table, the space at the table, is only reserved for those who believe they deserve to be sitting there.
If you're stuck in a story. That's where you're stuck. There's a story you're telling yourself that doesn't serve you anymore. And you have to evaluate what that story is. I'm serious. Right now, if you say, Ed, I'm kind of stuck where I am. Well, what you need to do is you need to alter your associations. You need to do something in a short window of time. No question about it. You definitely need to evaluate what is no longer needed and evaluate the story you're telling yourself. There's all kinds of stories we tell ourselves that don't serve us anymore. This is critical. Maybe it's a story about your past, a story about your parents, a story about a previous relationship, a story about a success you used to have. You keep talking about that doesn't serve you to get to the next level. If I can be real with you, whatever you've achieved up to this point, that story you keep talking about, every second you spend in that old story about what you've achieved, your degree, some business you had, one thing you were real successful at in the past, every time you live in that story, you're stripping time and focus from the new story. What's the new story you're telling yourself? You can't have a new identity without a new story. What's the old story you keep repeating? Maybe it's not a success. Maybe it's a failure that you've had. It was a business setback. It was the market turned. It was the economy. It was someone who did you wrong. A relationship that let you down. A business partner who wasn't consistent. A failure you've had. A poor decision you made. A mistake you made in your life. And you're repeating this story to yourself, simultaneously trying to create a new identity. You can't take that old story into the new identity. One of the great distractions of chasing our dreams is this thing that goes off in our head as we're negotiating the price we're paying.
Should I keep paying it? Is it getting too high? Is it too much? And you'll have people in your ear, it's too big a sacrifice. You're going through too much. And you begin to negotiate it in your mind. It distracts all your focus. You can't be executing and negotiating simultaneously. If you're in your head negotiating and negotiating and negotiating, you can't execute. So negotiate it now. Negotiate it with me now. What are you willing to pay? For me, when I'm after something big, as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, I'll sacrifice everything else. But I will not sacrifice anything legal, anything unethical, or anything immoral. But beyond that, I'm going to get it. And I know that negotiation comes up front. I accept the suffering. I accept the sacrifice. I know the sacrifice is far smaller than the one I'll pay if I don't do it. And I eliminate distractions and I go freaking get what I want in my life, just like you can. And this needs to be your recipe as well. If you're one of these people who's still negotiating whether it's worth it, and maybe you've got someone in your head making you question it, that is a poverty and scarcity mentality. Let me prove it to you. When I didn't have money, and I spent most of my life with none, just like you, what do we do when we go into a store? We don't go get what we want. We go get what we think we can afford. And so I spent the majority of my life flipping price tags over. I didn't buy that shirt I wanted. I bought the one that I could afford. I bought things based on price, not worth. And so I'm sure you do. I didn't buy the car I wanted. I bought the car I could afford. So when I was broke and I had scarcity, what do you do when you're in that position? You negotiate price. You flip price tags. What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? Not what do you want?
When I was poor, everywhere I went, flip the price tag. What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? I was constantly negotiating the price for everything in my life. You do that when you come from a place of scarcity, of being poor. Successful people and wealthy people have a subtle distinction. They don't look at price, they look at worth. Is this worth it? If you're constantly looking at the price tag, you'll eventually relent. You'll eventually give in. Stop negotiating the price. It's a freeing experience to totally commit. When you totally commit to a relationship, to a business, to your fitness, to your faith, it's a freeing, powerful, it's almost like removing kryptonite from your life when you totally commit. Can you do that? The people around you always say, it's costing too much. It's costing too much. And you're going, maybe it's costing too much. You gotta start going, no, it's worth it. It's not the price, it's the worth. It's a subtle distinction in your life.
That same scarcity mentality we do in going after our dreams. We want to acquire our dream. You can't be in price tag mode. What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? You never get what you want. Decide in advance what it's going to cost. And then decide, here's the subtle distinction. Successful people don't negotiate the cost of something. They negotiate whether it's worth it. That's subtle. It's very subtle. If you're a person who's always thinking about what it's costing you in the sacrifice towards your dream, you're always going to be negotiating it. But if you can decide in advance that the cost is worth it, the negotiation stops and you go execute. What I'm telling you is if you really want something bad enough, it's worth it. It's worth it. So start to feed yourself the worth question over and over and over again, not the cost question. Cost is a distraction. Worth is a focus mechanism. This is so worth it. It's so worth it. It's so worth it. Focuses you.
There are 6 human needs.
Yep.
Those, and they're not wants, they're needs. There's not 8 of them. There's 20, there's 6. And these needs, by the way, at any given time, 1 or 2 of them are dominant. And the needs are the need for certainty, right, in your life. Ironically, the need for uncertainty, the need for love and connection, the need for significance and recognition, and then growth and contribution. So certainty, uncertainty, love and connection, significance, growth, contribution. Those are the 6 needs. And one of the things we do when we message people when they don't respond is we message them with our needs. Like what Lewis is saying. Yeah. I need this. Can you help me?
I need a job. I need money. I need help.
Correct. Yeah. I need help with this one question. The second thing is to get me to respond to something when I was, say, 25 years old, I had a giant need. So think through what's the need of those 6 that's dominant for this person I'm messaging. Stay with me, everyone, on this, okay? Because when I was 26 years old or 25 years old, one of my dominant needs was significance and recognition, just like yours was, right? I wanted to be somebody. If you said, hey, you know, I can get you on my podcast, there's 1 million people listening, I'd be like, whoa, significance, right? So that would be my need. My need, actually, if you were to evaluate me now, is really contribution.
Yeah.
Growth. So one of the things you could say is you'd help other people. You'd make a difference. Think about what my need might be.
You'd impact 1 million lives if you did this 20-minute thing with me. Yeah.
Right. You did it when you asked me to come speak at School of Greatness. It was you did it sincerely, but it wasn't like, hey, Ed, there'll be a big crowd. It was like, Ed, I really think my family would respond so well to you right now. And I went, I'm in. I don't care what it requires. I'm in because I want to serve. I want to make a difference. In business, you can become a lot happier person if you begin to listen less to what people tell you they're going to do and focus much more intently on what they actually do. It's interesting, you have friends all your life and then you go through an event like this and you learn who your real friends are. Any of you that ever been through a trial in your life or a difficult time, in my case it was a health issue recently, it's during those times when people actually physically step up and show you that they're your friend, that you learn the most about them. It's not someone telling you I love you or hey buddy, care about you. It's when you need them, are they there? It's what they do. Friendship is an action. It's an active thing. It's not a state of being. And I learned a lot this last month or so about, some folks frankly surprised me that reached out and were there for me, and maybe people I didn't even know would be that don't always verbalize it, but physically they're friends. And then there's other people that, you've probably had this happen too, that you go through an event and you're surprised by those that don't, that weren't there, that didn't call, that didn't seem to care. And so you learn a lot by what people do. I've learned who my real friends are the last few weeks, and it's been a great experience. I have more friends than I thought I had, which is a good thing. But there are a few folks who I thought were my friends, and maybe they're not. And they certainly didn't act like friends. So, but how does that relate to business? Well, you get let down an awful lot by people by listening to them. I've been training people now for 20-something years, and I tell you, people talk a good game. People tell you, hey, this is my time. I'm going to get 5 of these this month, or I'm going to write 10 of those, regardless of the business you're in. If you're training or leading people in any way, or you run a sales organization, or if you're part of our organization, people talk constantly. And if you're not careful, you begin to actually listen to them. You begin to actually believe what people tell you they're going to do or how they actually feel. All you've got to really do is watch what they do. What you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. And you need to embody that yourself in business, because you start to act differently based on what people tell you. If someone tells you, hey, I'm feeling great, I'm going to do big things, maybe you don't do as much yourself, or maybe you don't go get that next recruit, or maybe you don't go write that extra sale or fight for that extra inch because of what other people have told you they're going to do. And furthermore, sometimes even leading people, don't listen so much to what they tell. People are going to tell you what you want to hear. People tell you, I feel great, things are good. Well, the truth is, what did they do last month? How much money did they make? How much business did they write? Because that's really going to indicate whether they're going to be with you long term or not. I mean, if someone's not making money, if they're not recruiting people, if they're not writing a lot of business, they're on their way out the door, not on their way staying. No matter what they tell you, I'm in for life, I'm committed, you can depend on me. The bottom line is, what did they do last month? How much money did they really make? What did they really save? Are they actually behind on their bills? Are they current on things? And so pay more attention to what people do than what they say, and you will have a much better barometer of what's really going on in your business. A couple ironic things about closing and selling that you may not have ever been told before, but I'm going to tell you. People don't have to believe what you're saying. Is that crazy? People do not have to believe what you're saying. In fact, too many of you spend too much time trying to get people to believe what you're saying, and you come across like a beggar because of it. You seem desperate. Who's ever trained you to get people to believe what you're saying doesn't get influence. There's a subtle difference that the great ones know. And you've probably never been told this before, but I know it. And persuasion is not about getting people to believe what you're saying. You ready? Persuasion is about getting people to believe you believe what you're saying. That's a subtle difference, brother. That's a subtle difference, sister. If you start to think through, I need to get people to believe I believe this, not to get them to believe it. People buy things all the time they don't believe. People buy things all the time they don't understand. That's okay. We want to educate, we want to train, but they don't have to believe everything you're saying. If they have to do that, you're going to look like you're begging all the time. They got to believe you believe it. That's a different intention. The most certain person always influences the less certain person. When you're exchanging with a recruiter or a client, they're either going to close you or you're going to close them. And that's certainty. Certainty is influence. And you can't transfer to me something that you're not experiencing for real. You have to really believe it. You got to really be a crusader. You got to really understand it. When you really believe something, you can transfer that certainty to me. Everybody with me on that? Say yes. This is a huge deal. It's a huge deal that you need to begin to understand that persuasion is they believe you believe what you're saying. I love that most people don't take anything seriously. I love that most people aren't coachable. I love that most people don't do what I teach or that anybody teaches. I love that. That's how certain people win. Half of y'all haven't written a word down I've said. If you were in my team, I'd slap the hell out of you. I don't say that disrespectfully. I say this as a dip who had a Velcroed car. I don't say that talking down to you. I say, wake up. You want to win? You want to be a millionaire? You got to quit being so casual. You walk slow, you talk slow, you implement things slow, you talk a good game like you're going to be somebody, like you're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can't even write a note down. You're going to get your ass kicked in business, dude. Business is a sport. It's competitive. You got to get focused and get in a hurry. You're around a dude like me, we will smash your organization. We come to play. We're for real. What are you? Cool? I've seen all kinds of cool guys my whole career. Cool guys go broke. Cool guys have little flashes in the pan. They have a good 2 or 3 years. Players who implement strategies that get focused and intense, they win decades. They win multiple championships. You win for 2 or 3 years. You know how many guys I've known that have made money for 2, 3, 4 years that are ass broke now? You got to win year after year after year to be a player in business. I'm going to tell you right now, either you're going to control your time or your time's going to control you. Either you are going to dictate the terms of your life or you're going to be somebody who reacts and responds throughout their life. This device right here can both speed up time in your life or it can slow it down. It's not always a speed tool. So one of the tips that I've covered before but not enough people implement that I promise you is a quality of max out performers that relates to their time is they control it. They do not react and respond. They dictate the terms of their life most of the time. And that means this, when you wake up in the morning, the greatest thing you could do for yourself is not touch or look at this device for 30 minutes to an hour after awakening. So that when you wake up, you take control of your time. You control the time. You control the beginning of the day. You get clear, you meditate, you pray, you stretch, you think, you go through a gratitude exercise. You control the first 30 minutes of your day. It sets a tone that I'm in charge of my time, not what enters this. If the first thing you do is grab this, this now dictates the term of your day. This controls my day. What hits this, what email, what text, what call hits this, what Instagram post hit this, this controls me. It controls my time. But if you can stay away from it for the first 30 minutes to an hour, you send a message to your brain, to yourself, that you control time, that this day is on your terms. And again, you stack up a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years of a lifetime of you controlling and dictating the terms of your life. There's also this misconception from people that you are certain things, meaning some people have this misconception that I am what I possess. In other words, I am my possessions. And so they link their self-confidence to their possessions. And so they're constantly trying to acquire more and more possessions, thinking that's where they get their self-confidence from. That's how they're defined as a person. I am my possessions. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's a hollow way to try to gain self-confidence by possessing things. Nothing wrong with going for material possessions. I have all kinds of them. But I don't link my confidence to those possessions, nor am I deluded into thinking if I could just possess more things, then I'll feel better about myself. So this is a mistake. There's a flawed thought. Number one flawed thought, I am my possessions. Second flawed thought, I am my accomplishments. In other words, my self-confidence is only linked to what I accomplish. So because I haven't accomplished certain things, I don't have that certain title, that certain award, that certain recognition, I don't believe in myself. I'm riddled with self-doubt. I'm defined by my accomplishments. The difficult thing about that is now all your life you're going to have to accomplish more and more and more in order to feel self-confident and eliminate self-doubt. You are not your accomplishments. You are not your possessions. You are you. You are perfect. You are beautiful. You were born to do something great with your life. If you're a person of faith like me, you believe God made you in His image and likeness and wants you to do something great with your life, not that you are your possessions, not that you are your accomplishments. And this is the social media insidious influence it has in our lives. People think, I don't feel good about myself. I've got this self-doubt. The gateway to me feeling more self-confidence is if I could possess more things, or if I could accomplish more things. Yes, having nice things will make you feel better about yourself. Yes, accomplishing things certainly is a reinforcement for self-confidence, but it's not the pathway to getting it. The pathway to getting it is doing something great with your life where you keep the promises you make to yourself and acknowledge this self-doubt, this self-thought, this negative talk isn't even mine. It was given to me when it was impossible for me to defend myself as a child. And maybe it even happened in adolescence, and probably some of those incidences have happened for you as an adult. And these ones as an adult are like that thing I said earlier. Oh, it's another time I reinforced the table. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not prepared enough. I'm not the right race. I'm not the right gender. I don't come from the right kind of family. I don't have the right education. And we find these references as adults to reinforce these self-doubting beliefs we were given by somebody else as a child. Flawed belief is that you are your possessions. You are your accomplishments. Third flawed belief. I am what other people say I am. Wrong. You are not what other people say you are, good or bad. I see too many people that if someone says something negative about them, they believe that's who they are. This is the flawed third belief. I am my possessions, I am my accomplishments, and you know what? Or I am what other people say I am. Let me be clear with you. You are not what other people tell you you are. It wasn't true when you were 18 months old, 5 years old, or 55 years old. You are not what other people say you are. So stop letting that dictate your self-confidence or fill you with self-doubt. And for the record, you are also not the good things people tell you you are all the time. Don't live for likes. Don't live for comments on your social media. Don't do things in your life just to solicit someone saying something great about you. It's a cheap, shallow, hollow way to try to gain self-esteem and self-confidence. It's fleeting, it's short-term, and it's needy. In fact, the fact that it is a necessity for you to get liked, to get people to say good things, to get comments on your social media, or to do so in your presence indicates a lack of self-esteem and self-confidence, because we know self-confidence is an internal game where we keep the promises we make to ourselves. The fourth type of flawed thinking is I am what I look like. In other words, if I don't look a certain way, like what the magazine says I should, or social media says I should, if I don't look like these people, I shouldn't have self-confidence. And that's ridiculous. I can tell you straightforwardly, you're beautiful as you are. Especially the ladies listening to this or watching this. The world is constantly trying to get you to believe you're not enough. You don't look right. You should lose this weight. You should gain this. This should be smaller. That should be bigger. Whatever it might be. They're constantly messaging women, you're not enough. You're not enough. You're not enough. You are what you look like. And this is true for men as well. Let me tell you straightforwardly, you are not what you look like. You are your soul. You are your spirit. You are your gifts. You are the contributions you make. You are your intentions.
I've made a mistake in my life. And that is, it's contrary to what I teach. I've not been great in my life at being present. I've not been great at it. I think a lot of achievers struggle with this, and I go in and out of this mode where if I was at the pool yesterday with my kids, and I'm looking at them, and man, Max is going to college this year. My daughter's like a young woman now, you know, and I wish when they were a little younger that those moments when we were in the pool when they were younger, I was just with them. Wow. And not thinking about work and thinking about protecting them and thinking about saving for college and being in the moment and enjoying now, right? Wow. Like really enjoying now. And the moments I'm the most effective, the most blissful, the most joyful, spreading it is when I'm the most present. And I've always struggled with that because I'm always dreaming about the future and wanting to achieve in the future. The best me is the one when you're just, me and you are in the backyard, you know, hanging out. And it's just me and you, Lewis. And so for me, I'd go back to the 30-year-old and I'd say, I want you to achieve. I want you to win. Please enjoy this moment. Please be present right now. The 40-year-old Lewis, with this beautiful relationship you're in now and all the achievement, don't miss now for what the possibilities are in the future. Like enjoy now. If this moment right now with the corona crisis teaches us all anything, it's like all we really have is right now. And the more you project into the future, you know, I said on my post today on Instagram, I said, or on all social media, I said,
worrying doesn't solve today's problems. It takes away today's peace. And that's, most of my posts are lessons for me. So that would be my lesson at 30, 40, and 50 is be more present. You can't love yourself if you're not being yourself. Just be you. Cool. Just be present.
So I think I had a lot of beat up. I mean, emotional, mental, psychological beat up. I was like beating myself to death psychologically for decades of my life.
And the one thing, brother, because I know you've written so eloquently about this for everybody, that started with you acknowledging and realizing a pattern.
Yeah.
So we have these patterns of behavior, right? And so when you acknowledge a pattern you have that does not serve you, it loses a lot of its power over you just by you seeing it, being aware of it. Like, for example, in business for me, usually when I'm doing well, there's this really intense version of me. I don't always like that guy, but man, does he produce a lot of results. You know what I'm saying?
He gets paid. He gets results.
He gets paid. And I'm back sort of in the hunt in a lot of my business in such a way, and that guy's sort of re-emerging. And I've asked and there's this part of all of us that think that's why I'm successful. So if I took this intensity away, or I took this self-doubt away, or I took this anxiety away, I'll lose my mechanism to achieve. We all think this. It's complete BS.
Or not to interrupt you, but
yeah.
Or if I take this away, I'll lose the opportunity for girls to want me or have sex with women or to lose the weight or to do this if I take this away.
Right. We think that's part of our secret recipe when in fact, brother, and you've realized this too, you're in a more blissful relationship now, that you were succeeding in spite of those patterns, not because of them. And what they are is they become part of your identity. So you think that's why they produce these results, but you're winning instead of them, in spite of them. And so for me, just when they rear their head, I'm like, I'm doing that stupid pattern again. Here I go again. And it loses some of its power over me. And so you're 1,000,000% right. And that's why I feel such optimism about my life, is because I kind of know me. So I know when I'm doing that guy. Here he goes, the worrying me. Here he goes, the overreacting me. You're doing it again. And it's almost like a clown show when I do it, instead of me going, well, that's why I win. I mean, hey, you may not like that guy, but man, he became a millionaire.
Look at my view, look at my house, look at this,
And that you use these external things to validate your own negative pattern.
For me, it's come down to maxing out. And what maxing out means is you do one more at least than you think you're capable of. So when you're done, whatever you're doing, whether it's at the gym or phone calls or meetings or in sports, one more shot, one more throw, one more swing of the golf club or the baseball bat, the separator is for the winners, they do one more. I'm addicted to one more. And so I want your mantra going forward to be one more. What does that look like if we're working out? That means when we're in the gym and we say, I'm going to do 5 sets of 10, I'm crazy. Like I'm a psycho because I want to win. I want to be somebody. I want to separate. I want to compete. And the way I do that isn't with my giftedness, because I wasn't born with a bunch of gifts. And I think gifts are crap. I think for the most part, gifted people struggle in life because things come easy to them. I like that things haven't come easy for me in my life. I like that I don't have natural talents in every area. And maybe you like that about you too. Maybe you've looked at yourself all your life and thought, man, I don't have that natural beauty or that natural talent or this gift for creativity or intellect or humor. I don't have any of those things. But what I got is I will outwork you. And so at the gym, one of the things I focus on, they say it's 5 sets of 10. When I'm at 10, I go one more, bam, 11. If I'm running on the treadmill and it's a 45-minute run, I never finish at 45. I always go one more minute, 46. If I'm at the office and I'm supposed to make 25 phone calls that day, when I'm at the end of the day, I always do one more. If I've got meetings, I always do one more. My mantra for 3 decades in business has been one more. Why? Because we get out of life what we think we deserve. And I'm the kind of guy that I know when you do 45 minutes on the treadmill and I do 46, I deserve to be fitter. I know that when I'm lifting weights and I watch you do 5 sets of 10, and every single time I do one more. When it's a set of 5, I do 6. When it's a set of 8, I do 9. When it's 45 on the treadmill, I do 46. When it's supposed to be 20 phone calls, I make 21. When it's supposed to be an 8-hour workday, I work 9. Whatever it is, I always do one more. And what that does is it makes me eventually think I'm doing things other people aren't willing to do. so I should get things other people aren't going to get. You are one decision away from changing your life. And you have to accept that. You're one new meeting, one new relationship, one new contact, one new action, one new decision away from shifting your life from where it is right now to a totally different place. So what's the decision? You already know. I could go backstage now. There's something you've been hesitating on. There's a contact you need to make, isn't there? There's a job you need to quit. There's a relationship you need to engage in. Maybe there's a relationship you need to leave. I don't know what it is, but I know there's a decision that you need to make to take you to the next level, just like I know that's true for me. Because decisions shape our destiny when they're backed up by some massive ass action. Okay, but you can't take the action if you don't decide. Everyone say yes. People avoid being desperate. Think of the fact they come here tonight and they're down. They're not where they want to be financially. Their relationships aren't what they want. Maybe they're in a desperate place, and you might think that's a negative thing. But when you're in a desperate place, you take the best actions. Desperation is a great place to be. Those of you that are achieving, one of the reasons the achievement is slowed down is you've allowed yourself to feel less desperate. When you were broke and starting your business, or when you were brand new in your relationship and you were desperate to get her to love you or desperate to get him to love you, you took massive big action. How many of you are moms in the room? Raise your hand. You moms, if you woke up tomorrow morning and your baby wasn't in their bed, would you be desperate right away, yes or no? Big time desperation. You wouldn't be thinking about what you need to do. You'd be acting, wouldn't you? You'd immediately make the decision. You'd take massive action. You'd search the house. You'd go into the street. Would you worry if your makeup was on right? How you looked, what people thought about you? You wouldn't, would you? Have to have the perfect plan to go find your baby that's missing. You wouldn't need any of that because you were desperate. So when you remove desperation, all this bullshit creeps into your life where you think you have to have the perfect plan and look the perfect way and have the perfect thoughts and be all zen and perfect. What you need is to be desperate. What you need is to get after it. And I want you to get desperate to make that decision. Why? Because our obsessions become our possessions. What you obsess about most regularly, you will eventually possess in your life. The challenge for most people, sisters and brothers, is that we obsess on the things we're fearful of, what we don't have, what we're worried about. And then we end up possessing those things over and over again rather than programming ourselves to become obsessed with what we want, what our dreams are, what we believe we deserve. When we become obsessed about those things, long term, we end up possessing those things. Can I get an amen for that? Yes? Yeah, most of us don't replace the external parts of our lives because those things happen naturally without thought. The external results of our life, in order to replace ourselves with the next best version, requires intention, requires obsession, requires desperation. Everyone with me on that, say yes. So it's not unnatural to change. Your friends that think you're crazy to have started your business or come to a seminar or spend money you don't have, they're the crazy ones. It's unnatural to be the same person you are right now next year. For all of you in here, the 35-year-old you should be gone next year forever, and there should be a brand new, better 36-year-old. You 20-year-olds, there should be a better 21-year-old next year. You should constantly be replacing yourself just like your bones do, just like your lungs do, just like your cells do. It's natural to be replacing ourselves, but we're around people who aren't, so we think it's natural not to.
If you want another amazing Ed Mylett clip, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
This is a secret
I've
that
seen
most
it.
people won't tell you,
I've
right?
seen it on my show as well, yeah.
You should quit on more goals, but you don't quit on your mission. That's the most important thing.
I tell you to set goals beyond your lifetime.